And I saw one of his heads as if it were wounded to death. And his deadly wound was healed, and all the world wondered after the beast. And we all, God add his blessing to his word. Amen.
Well, in the essence of what's to come, we have tried to abbreviate things and move things right along here. I would say we've got a fine start, so I'm told that it's 12 o'clock we need to be done, so that's 50 minutes, right? That's exactly 50 minutes.
You don't take all of it.
I don't take all of it. All right. All right, kids, we got the projection going there. Well, I'll get all this technology figured out and stuff here. Eventually we'll get started. I originally had a longer presentation that was planned. And then because of time, why is that? Alright, let me work on this just for a little bit. There's always now I think we're rolling. All right. Is it time to pick the trumpet back up? How many of you know who Randy Roberts is? Heard of him? There's 4 people in this church who know who Randy Roberts is. All right. How many of you heard of Loma Linda University? All right. A few more people have heard of Loma Linda University. How many people know the largest Adventist church in North America? Loma Linda University Church. Okay, he is the pastor of the largest Adventist church in North America. So that's Randy Roberts. Randy Roberts was my pastor for a few years when I was a medical student in Loma Linda. And I didn't know it at the time, but he wrote this book. The book was titled, "The End is Near Again." I've read this book, studied it several times, and it came back to me just recently. And so I kind of looked up some of the themes, looked up some of the kind of stuff that he was talking about. Now, he wrote this book a long time ago. And I've given some presentations on this and things. And the essence of this book is Adventists get excited about times and dates. Adventists get really excited about picking up the trumpet and just, let's go. The end is near, we're going. But what happens after Christ doesn't come? Our church was founded on the Great Disappointment. That's why we exist. The end is near again is the essence of what we're going to talk about here. And as a kid, I never thought that I would ever see 40. I'm 40 this year. I would have never thought that. People were talking about this Gorbachev guy, the Cold War, communism, oil embargoes, Chernobyl. Cuban Missile Crisis, that was kind of before, but they were talking about that. Nuclear winter. I don't know how you remember. Anybody remember as a kid? I was in public school for a while, and it was required for public school kids to have a fallout shelter. You remember those fallout shelters? I had no idea what that was for. You'd go, and I remember as a kid, we had drills. You'd come out of your desk, you'd all line up by the door, you'd go down the hallway, and then you'd go into I think it was like a storage or a janitor's closet underneath the bleachers. You had to watch your head because it was narrow and it was small, and we had these drills. So if for some reason there was a nuclear missile headed at the United States, we'd go underneath the bleachers and somehow be miraculously saved. I don't know, but we used to practice this stuff during the Cold War. I remember as down in Fairbury Church. Having some meetings, some special meetings, talking about, this idea that the end of the world is near. And I wasn't cared much about it as a 5-year-old. I just was happy there were other kids there to play with. But at the end of the meeting, I remember hearing the adults like, "Oh, this is like worrisome. We need to get ready. The end of the world is near. We got to get ready." And there was this big time of prayer, and people get excited, and they kind of, want to tell everybody. You remember Hail Bob? Anybody remember that? What's Hail Bob?
Comet.
It's a comet. You remember who, let's see, who is this guy? Heaven's
David
Gate. What's his
Applewhite?
name?
Applewood.
Applewood, yeah. Applewood, Heaven's Gate comet. I remember exactly the time that I heard all these people killed themselves. I was coming out of the paint booth down at my dad's place. I was walking out and I heard on the radio that 30-some people killed themselves to go hitch a ride with this Hale-Bopp comet to the eternal abyss in some faraway galaxy. That's a little weird, I kind of thought. Is that really is that the end of the world? What? Harold Camping, how many remember that? The end of the world is coming. The end of the world is coming. Camping was the president of Family Radio. I used to listen to Family Radio a lot. Camping said the end of the world was coming on May 21 of 2011. Well, it's 2014. Well, maybe 2015 actually. I don't think God came in 2011. So why are we talking about the end of the world is near? If we've said all these dates, people in the past have said all these dates, all these times, why? Is it here again? Is the end near again? That was Randy Roberts' question. Roberts talks of the fear. He talks of the panic that is instilled in people when the end of the world happens. But that's not all that happens when you look at the end of time. Is there possibly some reason that Adventists are so fixated and focused on the end of the world? Is there possibly some good that comes in looking at the end again? Roberts talks about the saints grabbing the trumpet, lifting them high, and proclaiming the end of the world is now, and then setting dates and times only to be disappointed. But he also talked about being ready, having road signs, what to look for, what to watch for when the end comes. And then he asked the question, why? Why do you have this focus? Why do you have this want? Why do you want to know when the end is near? Does everybody remember where they were on 9/11? I remember exactly where I was. I remember exactly what I was doing. I was getting a cup of hot chocolate out of the machine in the lounge at University of Iowa Hospitals and Clinics. And then I stepped aside and watched the TV, and I was like, wait a minute, that looks like the Trade Center. Did I see that thing on fire? I looked back, got the chocolate, the hot chocolate was done, freezing in the operating room. I was drinking hot water, hot coffee or something. I look at him like, that thing's on fire. I had, And so I went back to the, I didn't think anything of it. I'm like, well, there's probably some, demonstration or something, or, So I go back to the OR, and, they start talking about something, and somebody said, a plane hit a building in New York. And I'm thinking like a two-seater Cessna plane, like a big deal. They're like, no, it was like a big plane. Well, I saw a little fire at the trade center. That must have been what it was. Okay, no big deal. Case is done. I go back. One building falls while I watch it live on TV. Peter Jennings is talking about it. What happened right after 9/11? Does anybody remember what you felt like right after 9/11? I don't. You don't. I know you don't. You were 2 at the time or whatever. 2 days old, that is, or 1 day old. Okay, let me tell you. Let me see here. Well, wait a minute. That's not what I want to do. Oh my God, here. Just as an aside, I'm gonna read something here. This is what I found in Testimonies to the Church, page 9, volume 9, page 12 and 13. Interesting, as I was reading this. On one occasion, while in New York City, it was night season, called upon to behold buildings rising story after story toward heaven. These buildings were warranted to be fireproof. They were erected to glorify their owners and builders. The scene that next passed before me was an alarm of fire. Men looked at the loft and supposedly fireproof buildings and said, "They are safe." These buildings were but these buildings were consumed as if made of pitch. The fire engines could do nothing to stay the destruction. Firemen were unable to operate their engines. Supposedly a fireproof building, but yet it caught on fire. Oh, it'll never happen, it'll never happen. Is there a fear when we talk about the end of time that we get so calloused that it won't happen? That we see the signs over and over and over again, and we say maybe it's not going to happen? September 14, 2001, George W. Bush put a declaration of National Day of Prayer. More people attended church and prayed on that day in the United States than has since. It's been what? 15, this is the 15th year, or 13th year of the anniversary. More people prayed on that one day in the United States than any day since then. I will probably even venture to bet more people prayed on that day than will ever be in the history of the United States, or future of the United States. So today we're going to look at a little bit of the road signs. Not to get more calloused, not to get more setting times and setting dates. But we're going to look at a few road signs to build hope, to build faith, to build confidence. Yes, we are on the right road and we need to keep going. I was driving through Omaha yesterday and let's see, let me get this right. So we're winding around through Omaha and we weren't going too fast, but I went through at least 6 red lights. I went the wrong way on one street, I turned and went the back way on the other street, all to get to my destination. And I didn't have a single accident, nor did I get a single ticket. Why? Because I was following a funeral procession, being escorted by a police officer. How did I know I was going the right direction? I was following the car right in front of me. He had his blinkers on, flashers on. You keep following the car right in front of you, you do fine. We were all through the red lights, we went through the runways the wrong way, we went around the back streets on our way to the graveside. So these signs are not necessarily signs to be, you're running through red lights. Yeah, that's exciting. That's, you missed out a ticket. But these are the signs, the blinkers in front of you. Just keep going. You're on the right path. Before we get into that, I just want a brief bit here on what this message is about. The Antichrist, beast powers, and the Pope. So, just as a review, in case anybody out here has any questions, who is the Antichrist? Who is the beast power of Revelation 7 and Revelation 13? Let's look those up just a little bit here. Turn in your Bibles. We are in the Word of God today, so we need to open our Bibles. Turn in your Bibles to Revelation 7. Daniel 7, 23 through 25. We're going to read that. And then we're also going to read Revelation 13, 1 through 8, as well as just a little bit of John there. So the first one here is Daniel. Let me find that in my digital version here. Daniel 7:23. This is an explanation by the angel given to Daniel. Daniel 7:23. He gave me this explanation. The fourth beast is a fourth kingdom that will appear on the earth. It will be different from all other kingdoms, and it will devour the whole earth, trampling on it and crushing it. The 10 horns are 10 kings who will come from this kingdom. After them, another king will arise, different from the earlier ones. He will subdue 3 kings. He will speak against the Most High and oppress his holy people and try to change the set times and laws. The holy people will be delivered unto his hands for a time, times, and half a time. Now, if you know a little bit about Daniel 7, know what that means, and it cross-references to another terrible and evil beast that is described in Revelation 13. We read a little bit of that this morning. Let's look at Revelation 13, 1 through 8. The dragon stood on the shore of the sea, and I saw a beast coming out of the sea. It had 10 horns, 7 heads. Sounds familiar? With 10 crowns on his thorns, and each head was a blasphemous name. The beast I saw resembled a leopard, but had feet like those of a bear, and the mouth like that of a lion. The dragon gave the beast his power, and on his throne great authority. One of the heads of the beast seemed to have a fatal wound, but the fatal wound was healed. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. People, now I want you to pay attention to this. The whole world was filled with wonder, and they did what? Followed the beast. Okay, remember that. People worshiped the dragon because he had given authority to the beast. The dragon is the devil, Satan, also described as a serpent, gave authority to the beast. And they also worshiped the beast and asked, who is like the beast? Who can wage war against it? We're not going to go on. But I want to come back there. The whole world was filled with wonder and followed the beast. Remember that. So, going on here. Oh, 1 John 2, 18 and 22 essentially say the Antichrist. It's the only portion in the Bible which actually says the word Antichrist. And it directly refers to those who are against Christ. I'm not going to go into that right now. But what did we learn from these 2 chapters? The whole world wandered after the beast. There's also some very clear characteristics there. Power from a dragon, had a deadly wound. The wound was healed. It was a strong political power, a strong religious power, had blasphemy, was war with the saints, was given power for 42 months. Who do we say this is? It's filled in the papacy. The deadly wound was inflicted by Alexander Bouthier, 1798, who actually put the Pope into prison. And is the wound healed? I don't know. We'll talk more about it. You see if the wound is healed. He was in prison for a good many years. Very strong political power, strong religious power. We'll talk a little bit more of that coming up. Blasphemous. Is there only one religious power on the planet that claims to forgive sins? As far as I know. The 42 months, 538 to 1789, the papacy had essentially uninhibited power, Christian power, on the planet. Made war with the saints. We're not going to talk about that, but fits very well with the Dark Ages. And one of these old things that, I'm just going to throw this out here, some people have disputed this, but the number of his name in Revelation, we can read about it, Revelation 13, I believe that is 6 and 7, talks about the number of his name. which is Vicarious Filii 666 in Roman numerals. Now, the essence of what we're going to talk about. What are the road signs of the end of the world? In 2014, if you didn't miss them, there's a lot of road signs. We're going to talk a few about them right now. E.G. White, Christian Service, page 160 to 161. When Protestantism shall stretch her hand across the gulf to grasp the hand of the Roman power, when she shall reach over the abyss to clap the hand of spiritualism, which we'll talk about Palmer and Joel Osteen and Rick Warren, then we may know that the end of time has come and the marvelous workings of Satan, and that the end is near. That's what we're talking about today. Where do I get my material from? This is a publication found on Amazing Facts' website by Doug Batchelor. An urgent project to awaken multitudes and win souls. Let's go through this. 2014, what did we start out with? January 21. We may have talked about this in church. What happened? There's this guy called Tony Palmer, an Anglican bishop. He was so enamored with Pope Francis that he had to send a message to Pope Francis. And Pope Francis returned the message. And I don't know if you've seen the video, but there was a big meeting of the Anglican leaders, and there were comments, there were remarks like, the protest is over. Maybe we are all Catholics now. In another quote from another website I found, it says, Palmer was a precursor to full unity between the Protestant and Catholic churches. This has nothing to do with Adventism. This is a 100% different. I don't even remember the source I got that from. Tony Palmer then, later on in the year, got into a motorcycle accident and was killed. He was buried with blessings from Francis as a Catholic bishop, even though he was an Anglican preacher, Anglican pastor, bishop. January 21. Do not think that these appeals for unity do mean that the Catholic Church is ready to surrender what she considers her rightful authority. In the Pope's message, he says that he believes he is like the Joseph in the Old Testament, mistreated and separated from his brothers. Because remember, it is the brothers of Joseph coming to beg him for bread who bowed down before him and moved to where he was in Egypt. Great Controversy 563. Romanism is now regarded by Protestants with far greater favor than in former years. When was this written? Great Controversy? 1800? A long time ago. Romanism is now regarded by Protestants with far greater favor than in recent years. There is an increasing indifference concerning the doctrines that separate the Reformed churches from the papal hierarchy. All right, that was when? What did we say? That was January 21. Fast forward the clock a little bit. March 13. John Boehner, Speaker of the House, along with Nancy Pelosi, send a formal invitation to the Pope to address a joint session of Congress in 2015. That's this year. A formal invitation. This will be the first time in history that the Pope has ever addressed the primary leaders of the U.S. government. A few weeks later, Pope Francis meets with Obama in the Vatican. Obama had several meetings with Francis, one meeting of which was very private, and they met for over an hour. The Pope gave the President a medallion that symbolized the need for peace and solidarity between the two hemispheres. Where have I heard that before? April 28th, Francis is busy this year. Francis canonizes the saints in an act that was done to unify the world's, how many Catholics? 1.2 billion. It elevated the status of Pope Francis to being a world spectacle. Here's another interesting story. Just a month later, Pope advises the United Nations on economics, and he calls for the redistribution of economic benefits by the state. In one quote, I think it was by the New York Times, it said, Francis became what amounts to as a robe-wearing politician. Very nice. May 25, Pope visits the Holy Land, calls for what? Unified peace. Pope Francis in Jerusalem, he helped to move the two churches closer to ending their nearly 100-year divide. Also an interesting one. June 1st, because of the Tony Palmer connection, he speaks for the first time in a convocation or a gathering of the charismatics in the United States. That's a big one. Who's this guy? Anybody know who that guy is? Wait a minute. Am I in the wrong? Why am I? How did I get that? Those haven't been advancing since I got started. Something's wrong here. You should have flagged me down and told me I wasn't making sense here. You got to see these pictures. That's the fun part. Usually my computer isn't that much problematic, but obviously it is today. Well, that's not right. Let's try this again. Well, obviously that's not going to work. So I'm going to have to show you what I see here because I can read it, and then you can see it at the same time. Okay, we'll see if we can make this big enough so you can see it. I have no idea. It's never really happened that before. So here is what we were talking about there before. Across the Gulf. That's a cool picture, isn't it? There's our. If you can get a chance to go look at this, find this and read this. You got to see this. This happens all in 1 year. We're not talking about the last 50 years. This is 1 year. Here's the Anglican bishop, Tony Palmer, meeting with the Pope. We just talked about that. Pope invited to Congress. I mean, that's just like, you just look at that and you're like, really? Invited to our? Why was America built? Why was America established? What were the Puritans after?
Religious freedom.
From who?
Catholic Church.
That's why this is just like, you look at this and you're like, wow. Here's Obama, and I like this picture because whose table is he sitting at? Is this a joint table where both of them? No. This is Francis's desk, and Obama's sitting there like, homage. Canonizing saints. Advises United Nations on economics. Visits the Holy Land to offer peace. Doesn't that kind of, I mean, here he is at the presentation of the Tony Palmer convention. This guy right here. I have to read this to you. This is. I'm going to read this down here. These little small churches. Joel Osteen is a televangelist. He is an author and senior pastor of the Lakewood Church, the largest Protestant church in the United States, in Houston, Texas. His televised sermons are seen by 7 million viewers weekly and over 20 million views a month. 20 million views a month by this guy right here. Osteen has written 5 books, New York Times bestsellers, been called the Smiling Preacher. His preaching is seen in 100 countries. Joel Osteen, yeah, he's a big guy in the Protestant world. Wouldn't you agree? Biggest church in America. His first book, Your Best Life Now, was released by Time Warner and debuted at the New York Times bestseller list, and it remained there for 200 weeks. Joel Osteen. So, what does this have to do with things? Osteen, with leaders of the Mormon Church, led a group with Pope Francis and asked the question, can we find common ground to advance the ministry of Jesus so more people can experience the joy of Christian faith? Osteen said this of Francis, he is about making the church more inclusive. And that resonated with me. That resonated with me. Great Controversy 588. The Protestants of the United States will be foremost in stretching their hands across the gulf to grasp the hand of spiritualism. They will reach over the abyss and clasp the hands with the Roman power. Under the influence of this threefold union, this country, which country? This one right here, will follow the steps of Rome in trampling the rights of conscience. Fast forward at 1 month, June 8th, the Pope in the Middle East process. Let's see here. For the first time in history, the Pope invited the presidents of Israel and Palestine to visit the Vatican and pray for peace. This is interesting. This is the first time ever that the Quran was read in the Vatican. There's an interesting title. Pope calls for no work Sundays. In his quest for family values, in his quest to get unified support, he says we need to get back to where we were. We don't need to work on Sundays. July 7, here's another meeting. Unity and Diversity. There's Tony Palmer there way on the right. You see other people. Copeland is in there. Let's see. Just before his death, Tony Palmer led the delegation of evangelical leaders to meet with Pope Francis. What did they do during that time? They signed something. They signed a joint declaration of faith for unity and mission. And in 2017, they will be one on the 500th year of the 95 Theses nailed to the Catholic Church. The Protestant Reformation is over. July 22, Pope has picked a council to promote global Christian unity. August 22, that's an interesting picture. He was asked this question, do you approve of the American bombing? His answer, yeah, I do. Military force is allowed to stop unjust aggression. It's kind of interesting. We'll see who ends up on time. Most important man of the year. You want him creating your military force? September 4, Pope is asked to head a United Religions organization. October 27, this is very interesting. The Pope was talking to some scientists and was asked about the Big Bang Theory and quoted that it was all part of God's plan. It's okay. The Pope also said that biological evolution is compatible with the Bible creation. What? Evolution is compatible with creation? I don't think so. Some don't quite add up there. But hey, if he says it's true, it must be true, right? November 18, Pope meets with this guy. Who's this guy? Rick Warren. He's not a big deal, is he? Let me tell you a little bit about Rick Warren. An evangelical American Christian author, founder and senior pastor of Saddleback Church, an evangelical mega church in Lake Forest, California. The 8th largest church in the United States. Best-selling author, many books, including Purpose-Driven Church and Purpose-Driven Life, sold 30 million copies. 30 million copies. Rick Warren. And I think I have a little bit down here that says something about, he said basically that, in a meeting with Pope Francis, he said, up close you can feel the humility and compassion that he has for others. He went on to say something that Catholics and Protestants, we're on the same team now. We're on the same team now. Rick Warren, 30 million copies of his best-selling book, The Purpose-Driven Life. November 30, Pope calls for Christians to unite, to promote the unity, the full unity of how many Christians? That all may be one, and the world may... What do you think they want to believe? Sabbath is a Saturday? You think they want to believe that? Think they want to believe what we believe? I don't think so. December 15, Pope leads the most progressive year for Catholics. 78% of Americans view the Pope as favorable. How were we founded again? Why are we here? America was founded because of what? December 17. This is an interesting action. In a deal negotiated for 18 months with secret talks hosted by largely by Canada, it encouraged Pope Francis, who hosted a final meeting at the Vatican. Mr. Obama and President Castro of Cuba agreed in a telephone call to put aside decades of hostility to find a new relationship between the United States and the island just south 90 miles. Who's making the political moves? Is it our president? 2 Thessalonians 2, 4 through 6. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will come, unless the falling away comes first, and the man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who exposes and exalts himself above all that is called God, or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. So is the end near? Again? Are these more road signs? Yeah. Are these more signs that the end is near? Again? Yeah. Are they the same old signs we've been looking at for, how old is our church now? 150 years? Yeah. What's the Adventist church doing in 2015? We're still looking at signs. But if these signs don't tell you that you are on the right road, you're not looking at the right signs. That's the purpose. That's why we're here. So what will 2015 bring? I don't know. But I think they'll bring more signs. What happens next? I don't know. The road signs that we looked at do not have miles or distances. Matthew 24:36 says, no one knows the day or the hour. Harold Camping failed to read that. No one knows the day or the hour. But they are all signs. They're all signs that the blinkers right in front of you is where you need to be. Keep going. Keep going. You're in the right procession. So what do you do with all the signs on a daily basis? How do you make sense of it? You just keep walking. The signs are to promote you in your mind, in your religious studies, in your worship daily. Yes, the end of the world is near again. It has always been near. Somebody asked me, will God come in your lifetime? Absolutely. We're celebrating 2 funerals. One yesterday and one today. What's the next thing you see? So is the end near? Yes, absolutely it is. What are we supposed to do? We're supposed to keep walking. Is it time to pick up the trumpet and proclaim the truth that we know? Yes. We are to encourage each other with these words. All of these things should stand to encourage you that the great controversy will soon be over, and sin will be destroyed forever.
Amen.
We are not able to describe with accuracy the scenes to be enacted in our world in the future. But this we do know, that this is a time when we must watch unto prayer, for the great day of the Lord is at hand. Selected Messages, Book 2, page 35. The end is near, probation is closing. Oh, let us seek God while he may be found. Call upon him while he is near. Is the end near again? Yes. What do? Seek him, call on him when he may be found. So it's 2015. We've seen the signs. We know what's going on. We know what to expect. Is there going to be more action by Pope Francis with America in 2015? Absolutely. Are the American Protestants, is the ecumenical movement of the entire world looking towards Pope Francis for guidance, for strength, for ecumenical, for economic policy, for military policy, for religious policy? Absolutely. How do we know that? Because that's what it says in the Bible. What does that do for us on a daily basis? Keep going. We're on the right track. That's all I have. I promised I would get done before noon, and I kept my promise. Our closing song this morning, guess what? Pick up the trumpet. Number